Okay, so now I want to get into some of the more common layout and formatting tools that we have. And I want to use this existing document as our example. What I've done since the last video, I kind of added a little bit more text to this, and you'll see the same kind of closing down there at the bottom. All right. I want to start out looking at the salutation, and I know in the last video I showed you how to type that in and then go ahead and use the line spacing tool here to get rid of the extra spacing after a couple of these different lines or paragraphs there. Now I'm going to show you an alternative to that, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to kind of delete this part here, okay? So I'm just going to, and and what I'm going to do too, just to make it a little bit easier to see, I'm going to hit my enter key where I'm at, and that's just going to kind of pull everything down for me. Just want to kind of get that out of the way. So I'm going to go back up to the top here, and I'm going to go with that spacing that we had here, after the date. I remember I typed in that date, hit the enter key, and it would take me right to there. Nothing big deal there. So now here's what I want to show you as an alternative to having to go back and get rid of the space, okay? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in Mr. and I'm going to type in Lurch A. Okay, of course, when I do Lurch A, it's going to give me that. I'll come back to that in a second, and then I'll type in Adams, all right? And let me just go back. I'll fix that. I'll just do a right click on it. There's Lurch A. Remember we added that to the dictionary before? Okay, so now I'm at the end there. Now, normally I would hit the enter key, and I would get that extra spacing in there, right? Well, instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to backspace. I'm going to go back up to the top here at the end. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold down my shift key while hitting the enter key. Now, by doing that, I'm going to get what is called kind of like it's called a soft return. Basically, what happens is, and you probably noticed this when I was typing before, as you type, eventually when you get to the end, to the margin there, it automatically word wraps to the next line, all right? It doesn't give me a new paragraph, it just wraps the next line, da, 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 da. And when I get to the end here, it automatically wraps to that one. And I'm sure most of you out there watching this video understand that. You've seen that when you work with the word process or with your email, any kind of textual type system, you're going to see that. Well, that word wrapping is what we also call a soft return. Now, in this case, what I want to do is I don't want to just hit the enter key and get a new paragraph. What I really want to do is continue this paragraph on a new line. Okay, so instead of having to go all the way over to the end and wait for it to wrap, which would be kind of a crazy thing to do given what we have there, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to hold down my shift key, and while I got that held down, hit my enter key. See that? And what that does, it gives me then the ability that I can type in, let's say my GOAST, left parenthesis, R, right parenthesis kind of thing, space bar, systems, all right? And then, and now if I were to hit the enter key, see, I'm going to get that much extra spacing. I don't want to do that. So at this point then, again, I'll do another shift enter. I'll type in my 1313 Mockingbird lane, right? And then another shift enter, right? And then I got my shadow lakes Hawaii. Oop. All right. And then now in this one, I do want that extra spacing for when I type in Dear Lurch A, right? So, and I pretty much already have the Dear Lurch A in there, so I'm just going to hit my enter key. See, there I go with that extra spacing. And then what I'll do is I'll just hit my delete key a few times and bring that up there for me. See, so what this looks like here is no different than if I were to just do enter, 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 and then go back in there and get rid of that, remove extra space, right? So again, to me, that seems like a lot more convenient, easier to do feature, just by hitting that shift enter. What do you guys think? Okay, so now you see the difference between just doing like an enter versus the shift enter. You see what that does. Now we've got a third enter type tool here called the control enter. Now what that does is it actually prematurely breaks the page. In other words, it gives us a page break. Now to give you an example how that's used, if we go down a little bit further here, I think what I'm going to do too, let me zoom out so you can see this a little bit better here. So there's our document, okay? So let me, got it just a little bit further. Okay, so as you can see, what's happened is we get further and further down here, and this particular paragraph actually is getting split by the natural page break that we have in there, all right? So what I'd like to do is have this paragraph start on the next page. In other words, force this to go to the next page. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that. There's a wrong way, and I guess the right way, all right? The wrong way would be for you to hit the enter, enter, until it brings it up like that. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with doing that. It's just that if later on you're to add more text down here, it'll have a tendency of pushing those blank lines that you created here up into here. So if I'll just show you real quick here. I'll just go to the end here. And if I hit my enter key a couple times, you can see how we got that extra space up there. All right. So that's the only place, and that's the only thing that is really going to kind of work against you if you did it that way. Now the other way would be, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to backspace this back up there. Okay, there we go. The other way would be just to cause or create a page break at this point. So what we'll do here is we'll hold down the control key, hit the enter key, and that will then bring that to the next page. And what's really nice here is if I add anything more in here, see, it's still taking advantage of that extra space that we've got there, but it's not pushing this down, right? It's not adding those, it's not pushing those blank lines, because technically there's no blank lines. There's just, I guess they're blank, but they're not coded as such, you know, in the document there. If for some reason you decide that you don't want to do that, and you want it to be broken like that, then what you can do is just go back to the beginning of that page, hit the backspace key a couple times, and that will then bring it back to what you had there. Now, you might have a situation where you might want a certain paragraph to kind of stand out from the rest. And you could go in there and maybe make it bold or something, or make it italic. And those are options, I guess. But there's another one that we can do, and that would be to create like maybe a hanging indent, all right? And to do that, let me just show you how this is going to work. So this first one is called a hanging indent. And we used to be able to do it by going to the beginning there, holding down the shift key and hitting the tab, and that would have done it, but it's not like that anymore. What you have to do instead, you just have to kind of remember this, is you hold down the shift key and you hit the letter T for tab. And it kind of does, oops, the wrong one here. I held down the shift key on that one, sorry. So control and the letter T, and what it does is it's kind of like almost a reverse tab, all right? So what it does is it tabs in the rest of the paragraph, but the first line of the paragraph, it stays where it's at. So it's kind of the opposite of, let me just show you real quick here, doing a tab at that position, see? So it's just the reverse of that. So that's called a hanging indent. A lot of times if you're reading scripts and things like that, that is something that they'll do. And it doesn't even have to be a script, it could be anything else, but it's just another way of kind of making things kind of stand out there. Now, the other way of doing this would be using the indent, all right? So I'll go down a little bit further. I'll go maybe down to here, all right? And I could be anywhere in the paragraph, really. And what you can do is up on the toolbar, up on the ribbon, I should say, up here, we have these buttons right here. And this one on the right here is called Increase Indent. Well, if I click onto that, it brings it in. See, so it brings it in. If I hit it again, it goes and goes. If I go With the other one here, that just reverses it. So that's kind of an interesting one. That's where it kind of brings everything over. Now, if you're indenting, just like what we just did there, some people prefer to have that indent on both sides, okay? So, give you an example here. I'm going to go down to the next paragraph here, okay? So, if we went down to there and went back up there, and this is in the Home tab, and we click onto the Increase Indent, there it goes in like that. But then we also want to bring it in equally on the other side, see? So, that's where we can do two different things here. We can either refer to the ruler here and figure that when we did that indent, let me just undo it for a second here. When we did the indent, now I'm going to do it on this paragraph here, right? Now watch the ruler here when I go and hit the indent, okay? See how it goes in. So there it is. It's lined up there. So what I can do then is, since that went about a ½ inch in, I can go over here on this side on the ruler. You'll see that little marker, and that is your right indent, see? So over here, this is your, well, it's a hanging indent here, but it's your left indent right there, see? And this is your right indent. So what I can do here is I can just kind of drag that in ½ inch, and there it goes. Now, this really looks very dramatic when you have the document in justification alignment, all right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the whole document. And I don't know if you guys remember how we did this in past videos, but one way would be to go to the far left, right in the margin here, anywhere, any margin area there, and triple click this. Oop. 1, 2, 3, there we go. And it selects the whole thing. You can also, on your keyboard, hit Control and the letter A, and that will select everything as well. And then once you've done that, then you can go back up here in the paragraph area here, all right? And this guy right here, this is your justify, which is also Control J if you want to do it by keyboard. You click onto that, and there we get that, all right? The only problem with that, when you do the justification sometimes, it'll kind of stretch out the single lined, paragraphs here, right? So if you do that, well, all you have to do here is just select those affected rows, something like that there, right? We're just kind of selecting it like that, right? And tell that to just go back to left alignment, see? And that'll fix that up. So, but that doesn't happen all the time. But the major thing here is I wanted to show you is that now that has a more dramatic kind of look to it when it's indented like that. A third way of doing the indenting would be in the Home tab, go into the dialog box of paragraph, and over here in the indentation, tell it what the measurement you want on both sides. So you might say, well, I'll bring it up to like 1 inch, on the left and on the right side. You see it coming in on that side, and then hit OK, and there you go. And a lot of times, too, people will take that, they'll select it, they might even go and make an italic out of it. They might even go in there and change the text color to be just a little bit less dark, all right, to make it kind of stand out, because it might become maybe a quotation of sorts, it could be, right? So, not bad. Now, if later on you wanted to get rid of some of this indentation, let's say we go to the first one here, and this is the one we have the hanging indent, right? So if I click onto that area, you can see in the ruler area how we have this kind of a split here, okay? What this is saying is that your first line is lined up here, but all remaining lines are lined up here, and you can kind of see that right there. So all we have to do here is we can go here, right on where it says hanging indent, hold on the mouse and just kind of drag this back like this, and that fixes it just like that. You can do the same thing over here as well. You can click onto here, all right? Now in this one, what you could do is we could just go ahead and hit the decrease indent and bring that one back like that, all right? And on this one here, same kind of thing. We can just drag this bottom marker all the way to the beginning there and drag this marker all the way, there we go, to that point right there. If that gets to be too much, okay, go into the dialog box, right, and just zero these two out, all right, and that'll take care of it like that for you. So let me show you another tool we have. It's called the tab, and we kind of used that a little bit already. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. All right, so I'm going to use the tab key to set up multiple columns of text, okay? So let's say if we want to put some sort of like a little mini table, very simple, and not even having to use a table, we can use our tabs. Now in the module 2 of Word, in those videos, we get into working with the tab in a much deeper way, but here I'm just going to kind of show you the more basic use of it, which is what most people use it for, other than just tabbing. Now normally what the tab does is if I go to the beginning of video here, hit the tab key, it goes in like that. I mean, big deal, right? Hit the backspace, gets rid of it. Now, what I want to do is I want to create like a little, just a little list of something, right? So I'm going to go ahead at the end of this paragraph here, right? I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter key, right? And I'm going to type in something like, so I'm going to have something like maybe the name, person's name, let's say. Now watch this. I'm going to hit my tab key a few times here. Get up to about position, like maybe about 2.5 here. Okay, you can kind of see where I'm at. Let me kind of roll up here and you can see that better. See, so about 2.5 there. Now I'm going to put in there maybe their position, and I'll tab over a few more here, and then maybe their phone. Okay, something like that. All right. Now I could go back and then hit the enter key. All right, that starts off a new thing here. Now what I can do is I can go back to here, maybe highlight this area here, go ahead and make it underlined, you know, something like that. Whatever, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything at all, but I just kind of put that up there. And then what you would do next is go ahead and put in their information. So in this case, I might type in, let's say, maybe Lurch A. Adams, all right? Now, I'll go back there and fix that. Right-click it, Lurch A, there we go. Okay, now, normally, and you've probably seen this from people that you've gotten, you know, letters from like this. You'll hit the space bar a bunch of times, right? And you'll put in whatever that position is going to be, okay? So I'll just type something like that. Now, let me just show you something here. If you did do that, hit the enter key. Now you put the next person in like this, right? And then you space over, okay? You're never going to quite get lined up, see? And that's the problem, all right? And that's the problem with proportional spacing, because every character uses up a certain amount of space, all right? Like the letter I is a lot narrower than the letter M, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back to here, okay? Now, just like you saw when I typed in name, hit the tab key a few times, got to myself to here, that is a set position, right? So what happens now is when I go ahead and I hit my tab key now, 1, 2, 3 times, I'm exactly where position starts. So in here I can say something like maybe public relations, all right? And then I hit my tab key just like that. I'm perfectly lined up with phone. I'll type in 808, 555, 1212, just like that, right? Now, I can either hit my shift enter like that to get, no spacing in there, or I'm going to do just my plain old enter and get a little extra spacing in there. It's totally up to you, all right? So now I'll put in like maybe Chip Rose, hit my tab key a few times, there it goes. I can type in training specialist, all right? Tab it over, I can type in something like that, Okay, and then there we go. All right. Hit the enter key again. I can type in, let's say, Beavis Mudhead. All right. And the position there, we can put in something maybe like human resources, right? And that could be something like that, all right? And of course, Mudhead's not in the dictionary. We'll go ahead and right-click that and add it to the dictionary. There we go. So that's pretty cool. So that's another use for that. And of course, maybe what you'd want to do after that one, maybe hit the enter key and give yourself a little spacing in there, or maybe it looks better without the spacing, something like that. The other thing too would be that you can maybe select this and make it bolded, right? Turn off the underlining and instead maybe do a, maybe just change the color up a little bit, like that. So a lot of different things you can do with that. I just thought of something we could do with this. I think a better way of doing it would be to go to here, all right, and go up into your paragraph area here and tell it that you want to put a top border, see? And this is in the home tab over in the paragraph area here. So I can say top border there, and then I can go to here, and again put a top border in as well. So something like that there. Well, in future videos, we'll be talking about formatting, and I'll show you some really good ways of making this look nice. But I'm just being kind of quick with it, just to kind of just show you some ideas here. But we can do a lot of things with that to make that stand out. All right. So anyway, so that looks good. Now, another area I want to look at is inserting like a blank page. Now, what we have here right now, let me just zoom back out here again. All right. Oh, too far. All right, so there we have 2 pages. Now, what I'd like to do is in between the 2 pages, I want to put a blank page in there. Okay. Now, what I'm going to first of all do though is I'm going to go to the bottom of this one, to the beginning of that paragraph, and I'm going to do a Control Enter just to give myself, get it so where it's nicely cut off there, okay? And then at this position here, I want to put in a blank page. And I want to do that because maybe I'm going to put in a table of some sort or some information, whatever it happens to be. So how would I do that? Well, one way, and I think it's probably the easiest way, is you just go back up to Insert, you go over here to Pages, you tell it that you want to put a blank page in, see? And there we go, all right? Then I can go back to this page, all right? And I'm not going to get into this right now too deep, but you can say, well, I want to put a table in here, right? So you can go over here to the Insert while we're there, go ahead and go to Table, and specify a certain size table that you want to put in. You can do that, all right? Or you might say, well, I want to put a picture in there for some reason, so I can go here to Picture. We'll go and pick my dad here again. There it goes. And then I can take that. All right, so something like that there. And there we go. Not bad, huh? So, whatever. I mean, you use your imagination. You're only limited by your imagination with that kind of stuff. Now, I got one more thing to show you, and this is kind of out there, and it might not be something that you would use all the time. But we have a feature called Smart Lookup, all right? And as long as you're connected to the internet, you'll be able to take advantage of this. Now, I'm going to show you how this works. If I go to the bottom of this picture, and I type in something like Lahaina, okay? And that's it. Now, if I wanted to maybe look up Lahaina and just get some general information about it and maybe put it underneath this picture, all right? What I can do is I can select the word like that, all right? I just double-clicked it. I went back into my References tab. There's an item on here called Smart Lookup, all right? Now I click onto that, it loads it up, and there it is, see? So now what I can do is I can say, well, that looks pretty good. And then I can go ahead and point to this and click onto it, let's say, right? And I can then kind of select the text, whatever, right-click it, hit copy, right? And then what I can do is I can go back to here, okay, right-click there, and I can paste it in, just like that. I can also, let me just undo that real quick. I can also, when I right-click it, this is pasting it, keeping the source formatting. In other words, the formatting where it came from. Merge the formatting, or I can say keep it as text only. So if I do my merge formatting, then it gets more into using the same font and formatting that I have in my document. See, and then I can go back in there and kind of fix that stuff up there. But that's just a thought, kind of an interesting aspect there. I mean, normally if you were in a situation where you needed to find some information about whatever you're typing about, whatever you're writing on, you'd probably go off to the internet. So that's just a convenient way to not only go off to the internet, but to target whatever you've got selected on the internet, and then be able to take that and select it and copy and paste it in like you saw there. So hopefully some of this is going to come in handy for what you're going to be doing, and hopefully it gives you some ideas. I appreciate you watching the video. Take care.